Welcome, everybody. Our huge audience of two, our three board members. I'm Andrew Stuffler. This is the Building and Fire Code Board of Appeals. If you haven't been here before, we try to keep things, formal relative to Robert's Rules of Order, but practical and try to communicate. The goal is safety and health and safety of our community, and we want to try and focus on that. So we try not to let the structure of a meeting impede on the ability to really get the safest, healthiest, most code-compliant buildings and structures in place and decisions made. So with that said, our chair that's elected annually, Pat Carroll, is not here, so we will need the board to nominate someone to be chair for the day, and second, and then vote on it.
I'd like to nominate Eric.
Eric's nominated. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? No? Take a vote. All
Aye.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and Eric?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Eric, you're the chair. Take it away.
Okay, call to order. Here we are. Starting with the roll call. Do you guys want to?
Do you have a,
I do.
a big one? Yeah, okay, good.
So there's nothing other than call to order is like we're here, right?
Yep, that's it.
That's the start. So if you guys could just give your name and roll call.
Paul Spieler. John Maloney.
Eric Peterson. So this meeting is recorded. That helps them to know who we are and to keep things in order. Pardon me? Oh, who's absent today? So,
Mr. Chair, I'll fill that in for you. It's Marcia Ziles and Kevin Steenberg.
okay.
They were
Thank you.
asked to come. And Marcia might come in late, so we'll see.
Thank you. So we just like that. Now I'd like to open for public comment for anybody wishing to speak on these items. I don't think we have any speaker slips, do we?
They're
Today?
over there, but I don't see
So
anybody other
We
than
will
the
close the
appellant. Yeah.
public comment section. So now I would like to review and approve the minutes of the December 1st, 2016 meeting. Are there any comments from the board? No comments. We need a motion from the board to approve.
So John will make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted. Paul Spieler, I'll second.
I just had one question because I don't remember. It says board. Are those all the board? Those are on all the board, because
Those are the ones that were present.
Pat Carroll wasn't here, was he? So would,
If you look down below
at the
here,
top?
It says down below.
on
who's
attendance.
absent. Under, look at third of the way down. It says.
got it.
Andrew Abbott,
Thank you.
Carol Maloney.
All in favor? Aye. Including me. So anyway,
so Mr. Chair, let's make
Any
that vote-
announcements?
Let's make that vote a little more definitive.
Okay.
So all in favor on that?
yeah, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
So the, that approves the meeting minutes from the 12/1/2016 meeting. Got it? Okay, are there any announcements?
I have no announcements, Mr.
No
Chair.
announcements. Thank you. So, that brings us up to our first item, which is 213 Paseo Tranquillo. And I would like the staff to present, but I would also like to, could I welcome the applicant to go ahead and step
Absolutely.
up so that he doesn't feel like he's not included?
Join in on the conversation.
This is about you.
So,
So they're
Mr.
going to go ahead and present. You don't need to talk or anything at this point, but.
So, Mr. Chair and board members, I'm going to stand on our staff report. It's pretty simple. I think the core issue here might have been the timing of the different activities that the city took and the perception that that gave. So,
Could you outline that just
Sure.
briefly for us?
yeah, in March of
timing.
2016, we received a complaint relative to an art studio above a garage being used as a vacation rental. And then it sat in our office and didn't get investigated for months.
The building department.
Correct, in the Building and Safety Division.
Safety, yeah.
On November 1st, it was taken from one inspector and given to another inspector because we weren't getting our work done. And on November 29th, the property was inspected by the building inspector, and they found violations, of no surprise, similar to the violations that were found, I think it was in April.
All except the one on the ZIR.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was on a zoning information report.
Right.
So if you're a property owner and you have a zoning information report, you buy a property in April, and then in November, an inspector comes out and writes you a notice of violation and lists the things that are in the zoning information report that say not immediate issues, don't need to be addressed until later, or can be deferred. You get it's like, I've just got a mixed message. I got one document
Right.
that says they're not immediate, and I got another one telling me I got 30 days to fix them.
Right.
So I think it's, hopefully it's more understandable what happened is that we just had an overlap
The
between.
ZIR was ordered before or after the purchase of the property?
It's only required during, but it could
It
have
was a,
been before.
it was a
I
part
don't know.
of the purchase of the property?
Yeah, 2 months
Yeah.
before the closing date.
Thank you.
Yeah, so at some point you have to have it to close,
Right.
but you can get it before if you want, and they're good for 6 months or a year or something, so,
One that I had was for a year.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, that's the way staff sees it, is that, it was the timing of this definitely gave the impression that we were enforcing on a zoning information report. And we've made that commitment to the realtors and the people doing transactions, real estate transactions, that we don't enforce on zoning information report violations unless they're immediately dangerous.
Right.
So if they're immediately dangerous, they get given to our office and we take care of them.
You may not even know about them, right? Unless they're immediately dangerous? Would you be notified as a matter of course?
It depends what they are. Sometimes we are aware of them. They're minor, and there's a code enforcement case created and passed along to us, but we don't act on it.
Okay.
That's usually when the zoning inspector thinks that it could be imminently dangerous, just wants us to confirm, and they give it to us and say it's an immediate hazard, and then we kind of go, it's not an immediate hazard, or, whoop, yeah, that really is, and we address it. But the majority of those violations that show up on a zoning information report, in the section that says minor violations, are not, we're not aware of them until.
Right, they take care of a lot of
Yeah,
them anyway.
and,
right.
they,
I
and
understand.
at building plan check, when someone comes in proactively for a building permit.
Okay, do you guys have any questions for him before I switch?
So maybe I should conclude. I guess, so the conclusion is that, from our standpoint, the notice of violation that was issued was reactive to a complaint that we received in March. Even though it took us a long time to get out there and do the inspection, we think that notice of violation should stand and those violations should be abated.
Okay. All righty, with that said, I'd like to have you go ahead and present, and I don't know how you feel about it, but if we have questions along the way, we might ask them?
Sure.
Okay, so go ahead.
Pretty simple from my standpoint. I think the complaint being generated on I think it was the 2nd of March is what I saw on the paperwork that was filed. Didn't own the house at that time. Didn't close on the house until June. Closed on the house with the understanding, and I know they're two different reports, that those issues were issues that I would have to fix if I ever pulled a permit or wanted to fix something. Totally acceptable. Went ahead with the sale. Had the call that there was a complaint about an apartment. I use that room now as my home office. I work from home. I thought maybe somebody thought me being there all day was an issue. So I said, sure, come on out. Showed the appraiser everything. Obviously not an apartment anymore because I had the seller remove the bathroom they'd installed illegally at the time of sale because they knew they were running an illegal apartment. Had them remove all the plumbing from it as well. And all I've done is put a desk and a couple beds up there for my brother-in-law to stay in. Had them remedy at the time of sale, was fine with, taking care of other issues given an appropriate time frame when I was ready to. Just feel like I shouldn't be penalized and forced to remedy these issues for a complaint against the previous owner when there's been no evidence that I've run a rental out of this unit, and I have not. And that's pretty much all there is to it.
Okay, very clear and concise, I appreciate that. So then, I guess what,
Mr. Chair, do
Yeah.
you mind having the appellant read his name? I know he wrote it on the
oh, I'm
documents.
sorry,
but
yeah,
just-
could you
can
read your
state
name for the
and
recording?
address?
Alexander Tate.
Thank you.
So do we have any public comments on this? We didn't get any slips, so I guess we'll close public comment, and then I'd like to ask if you guys have any questions.
So,
Good.
I'm just coming into this, so the question that I have would be, the ZIR reported everything that, that he's being asked to remedy right now?
It did. I think there were additional things that our inspector found when he went out relative to openings that had been changed. Probably not from this
Okay.
owner, but at some point in time, someone changed windows and
Well, the
doors.
ZIR didn't catch that, but then when the inspector came out after the complaint, then there was additional items that were discovered.
One item.
Yeah.
One item.
2 walls that the previous owner or the owner before that had put up to install the illegal
Right.
bathroom above the garage.
Right, okay.
So they had noted everything but the 2, framing walls that they put up to put the bathroom in there.
Okay.
So there was no, there would be no expectation as a purchaser to actually contact, I guess, the building department to look for anything if you were buying. So did you know about the building department complaints when you purchased the property?
I did not know about the complaint, no.
Okay.
I knew that they were running an illegal apartment because they wanted me to waive the
Right, and you
zoning.
clearly did things to try to eliminate that.
And I said, because I was moving across country and had a little bit of uncertainty, I wasn't always
Right.
here for every step of the process, that I told them I was not going to waive the inspection. They needed to do whatever they had to do to remedy what they had
And
done.
to clarify, what we're looking at today is an appeal of the building department's requirement for you to have a permit for these items. Is that correct?
Immediately fix.
To immediately. Are there other options for us for time and money?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. So we haven't had a lot of hearings on notices of violation. We get a lot of disabled access hearings. So this is kind of a newer topic. The building department has a standard for how we issue notices of violation, and the state housing law tells us that we have 30 days that we have to tell someone when they have a substandard building, which
Right.
means it has a violation in it. It's not a bad building, just by definition, substandard. We have to give them 30 days to fix it. So that's why all of our notice of violation, unless it's an immediate hazard, will say on page 2 of the notice of violation, in this particular case, well, I think our pages got messed up. Page 3, it'll say, the building officials determined that the violations on the property must be abated in an expeditious manner. A permit must be obtained or work commenced within 30 days of the date of the violation. So that's kind of canned text. It just
Right,
kind of goes
but
out.
pretty short
Whenever it's
timeframe,
housing, right? So the board has the discretion. I don't have that discretion, but the board has the discretion to say, in this particular instance, we think this is the appropriate time frame, or in this particular instance, we think if there's a question of the violations that were cited, we from the testimony we hear, we don't think that was a violation. We think this was a violation. You have quite a bit of latitude, and you can give me direction.
Okay, so I think
You can
I'm
do it
kinda
with
clear on
immunity
what-
because
what-
you're a board, right? And whereas if I do it as
Right.
personal liability because the state law says this. So that's the benefit of the appeal
So let
hearing.
me just sort of say kind of how I feel a little bit. My biggest concern is that the building meet code, however we get there. I don't see anything personally that is immediate to me. I'm an architect, that's my view, but for what it's worth. But I'd like to see it done. That said, I realize you may have issues with your purchase and the previous owner, and we don't really get into that so much. We don't have to. I think you probably have recourse, but anyway, I don't think it's going to be a lot of money.
No, it's not, the money thing is not the issue. It's the original notice saying that I had
30.
until I pulled the permit to fix these things.
Right.
And then the next one saying, well, you got to do this now.
Yeah, and that's a state thing that,
Oh,
unfortunately,
right.
but I totally get,
Yep.
okay. So my feeling and comment on it is that we come up with what we think is a fair amount of time and propose that for him to get the work done. I feel, for me, he did his due diligence when he bought the property, he tried. And I don't think he is trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes here. So I think I'd be in the same, that's just how I feel, but I'd be in the same boat. I'd be like, and I would be looking for, why I didn't find out about it sooner. These things with the city, it just happens between departments and whatnot. But if we can, as a board, if we have some latitude to make it still be safe, which is really what I'm after, with a reasonable time frame, that's how I feel.
So, Mr. Chair and board members, just so you know, if there were immediate hazards observed by the building inspector, this notice of violation would have been accompanied by a red placard or a yellow placard. Those were not applied. So there are no immediate hazards that were observable by the building inspector. So I think you should find some comfort in the fact that extending a time frame for abatement is not necessarily, in our opinion, putting someone in immediate hazard for a longer period of time.
Okay, I have a question. When the complaint was filed, was the original owner notified? Were they aware of that there was a complaint?
I don't know. I'd have to look back. Pete, the inspector who wrote the notice of violation, is here. Pete, do you
When
want
they
to
file with the city, do they get, if somebody comes in and files a notice?
Do you want to come up here, Pete, and sit next to me, and we can see. I don't remember all the case details. I just remember Sam Blackwell had the case, and it didn't go anywhere for a long time.
I think he was trying to obtain access at the time, so I couldn't answer that.
Yeah, the standard procedure would be that the building inspector would have been sending letters to the property owner to try to obtain access, or calling them,
But-
trying to make contact.
This is John, but the property owner originally would have known that they didn't have a permit for work that they did.
Yes,
Right.
that's
So
an
violation or
assumption, but
not,
yes,
they
should
did
know.
work, obviously. It was done, and it was done without a permit. So that was clear to them, no matter what. And
Andrew, can you say that with certainty, or that the owner was notified, the original owner was notified?
No,
or
I can
you
only
cannot,
tell you,
right?
I don't think that there, Pete has kind of shared with me, I don't think there are notes in the computer system that would definitively say
You have to have like a certified letter or something,
that they've
right?
noted, that they gave notice. It's our standard practice, and a lot of times owners don't respond because they know that if they don't respond, we have to go through all these efforts of getting an inspection warrant, which we just don't have time to do most of the time. So in this particular case, that's why it sat. It just sat in the pile, waiting for a response back for access. And then when we had the new owner and Pete contacted him, the new owner was very amicable to us coming out and looking at it and telling him what the situation was. So
was the apartment or the room above the garage permitted at one time? So it was permitted, just wasn't permitted as it was being used or with the things that have been added to it.
Right, it was an it was permitted as an accessory structure, and there was no walls in it,
Okay,
just an open room.
so,
Yes,
okay,
habitable space.
all right.
So,
is the board familiar with habitable space and what we mean when we say that? Okay.
So I would ask, are there any other questions? Yeah, I have one other question.
Well, it was going to be some structural questions, but if it's already been permitted as that kind of goes away. From his perspective, he thought he was getting a house that was all permitted and fine. He had no idea that he had any issues. So
The issues that I was aware of were not the wall. Whoever did the zoning inspection missed that one.
sorry, the notice of violation issues weren't the ones that you were aware of, basically.
Yeah, I was aware of, I think there were 4 notices. I was aware of 3 of the 4. I'd have to look to know exactly. But it was a sink in the garage, a back door that had been added,
Right.
and a,
Back door, French doors, fence across the driveway, closet in the studio upstairs, and a sink in the garage.
so the closet, which was a bathroom, was the one that was not found on the ZIR inspection.
Okay.
But everything else I was aware of and ready to remedy if I pulled the permit to do any additional work.
And the prior owner took the plumbing out, you said?
I made them because they said they knew they wanted me to waive the zoning inspection. And they said that if zoning came out, they were going to find the illegal bathroom
Right,
and make them take it out. I said, well, then take it out.
right,
There you go, okay.
all right.
So if there was no complaint and the original ZIR had noted that there were walls, these walls were installed, would he have to remove them now, or would it just be in the future whenever he wanted to get a permit to?
Mr. Chair and board members, the latter. It would be in the future when he came in to get a permit for work on the property that he would have to address those.
Okay.
So I would just like to ask, how much time do you think you would like to get something turned into the city for approval, not knowing the area and
Well,
how long
I
it
was-
takes to get professionals and whatnot?
I
It
was-
shouldn't take much, though.
No, well, and I was hoping to deal with it whenever I pulled the permit. And I wasn't planning on doing that for a while because the house was, I think,
The permit, oh, you've got other work planned?
if we had work planned, but
Okay.
we don't have anything planned
Right.
for the, I mean, it cost us quite a bit of money to move.
Right.
So I wasn't planning to start any sort of projects.
Do anything, right?
I think the one thing we were gonna do maybe within a year is fix the gate, which I had an issue with it. So
Right.
then I would have to do that. So since I'm planning to do that in a year, I guess I would have to remedy everything at that
Or
point,
that, right.
or get permits for it at that point anyway. But that's,
The approval process for these items is going to be very easy.
Mr. Chair, I would recommend that you not make that
That's probably not a
statement,
good thing,
'cause I, as the building official, can't tell you whether
Right,
it'll be
not-
easy or difficult, but
How-
I
how
can
would-
tell you that if it's a single-family home, it goes to either a staff hearing officer or the single-family design board for exterior changes. So
Great way to say it.
it's not as onerous as going to planning commission and ABR or HLC, and it may be able to be handled at the staff level.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Which means he could probably handle a lot of it. But anyway, probably not for me to say either.
Mr. Chair,
I just wanted
it
an
goes on the
idea-
record, and it's difficult for us to really
Right,
say
so-
what's simple.
So all I wanted was to get an idea of how long you think it would take you to do that. So,
Well,
you would
my-
certainly, it sounds like you would certainly be trying to do it within the year.
well, I would be doing it whenever as my understanding of what was in the ZIR. And I know they're two different things, but when I bought the house, I had the understanding that I bought
Your
it
choice would be to wait until you have.
until
to-
I was ready.
Right,
Which
right.
was on the ZIR. That was my understanding when I purchased the place. That's what I would do. I want to do things properly. I'm trying to do things
Mm-hmm.
properly. Would pull permits, but don't really feel like I should be forced into a time frame because that was not my understanding when I purchased the house. And that this complaint was generated against a previous owner, so it wasn't even really something I did to force this issue.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't be comfortable how would I say, letting go of it. I want to make sure that these things get taken care of as a building item, I guess.
Mr. Chair and board members, as a matter of standard building permit review, when someone submits a project for us to review for building permit, it will go to planning and zoning, and they will look for the prior ZIR. They will look for the violations, and they will require those violations to be abated. So the board has the latitude to prescribe anything from standard ZIR practice, which would be the deferral to the next building permit, to a time frame similar to what's in the notice now.
Right.
You have that latitude, and had no complaint been filed in March, we wouldn't be sitting here. It would be sitting on the books, waiting for the next building permit application to come in.
Yeah, my only problem with that is just, I mean, we essentially would be taking your word that you're going to be doing this work, right? And that if you did, it would be taken care of. Otherwise, it could sit undone and unpermitted for a long time.
Which is what the understanding I had when I bought the house, that was
But it could.
acceptable.
Right, okay.
I have a question. Once there's a complaint, do all of the ZRR items have to be taken care of?
No,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, board members, that's a good question. So we don't, as a rule, review the file to the same extent that planning does when a building permit application comes in. We may look at a ZIR and see there are violations, but we're going to go out and do our inspection relative to the complaint that was made, and anything that's immediately dangerous that we observe while we're on that property. So in this case, if we went out to do the complaint that there was a vacation rental being conducted in an upstairs habitable space over a garage, that's what we're going out to investigate. It turns out we find that there's doors and windows that have been relocated and some walls put in, interior walls put in. Those happen to be the same violations that were in the zoning information report, and they were pertinent to the use of the space above the garage, so they were included. But if there were other violations on the property that were found in the zoning information report, we wouldn't have put them into the notice of violation.
Okay.
It's kind of it's a awkward, on one hand, you want to try to give every property owner a list of, here's the violations that need to be cleaned up. And on the other hand, you want to stick to the scope of work that you've been sent out on. So it is not a super simple ministerial kind of process
Right.
sometimes. Takes some judgment.
Any motions? More comments?
Comments. I'm more comfortable with a number of days than until a permit's pulled. But what that number of days is, I really don't have a good feel for what would be reasonable from our perspective
Right.
and acceptable from his perspective. It's definitely going to be somewhere between when he puts the permit in and 30 days, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, 180, 120, I don't know what would be a reasonable amount. I don't have any experience with this in
Right,
similar
right.
cases to use as a guide. I mean, 30 days is the day after tomorrow, and I think that's unreasonable at this point. So I think as a minimum, we need to extend it.
Mr. Chair, board members, so whenever there's an appeal filed, it puts a stay on the order that we've issued.
Okay.
Right, so that 30 days won't start again. I mean, if you decide you want to have it 30 days, it would start the day of your decision today.
We
It
could
would
rehear
reset.
this. if
Unless
we
it's an
wanted to.
immediately dangerous building that we have to knock down, and then in that case, it doesn't put a stay on it. So, but that's like a disaster or
Gotcha.
something.
May I ask the inspector if he feels that it's essentially a safe structure?
Yeah, I don't see any major violations there that
Okay.
present a hazard. Yeah.
So that means a lot to me, so.
Same here.
As far as I'm concerned, my view before we vote is that I'm not comfortable all the way up to a year,
Okay.
because it needs to get done, but it's not unsafe. So, that's my feeling. Paul, any motions?
Sure, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we extend it for a year, 365 days from today.
Okay, I'll
Do you have a
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. You okay with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, no, I will most likely be doing something in a year, and then I will take care of it.
You can always come back if you haven't, anytime.
Well, no, actually, Mr. Chair, just to make sure we're on so from the date of a decision that the building official makes, you have 10 days to appeal it. So
Right.
in this case, the board makes the decision, and this is a final decision. There is no appeal of it. So 360 days from now or whatever,
He does have 10 days to, no, he only has 10 days to appeal the first.
appeal my decision,
Right.
my
He can't
office's
appeal his
decision.
yeah.
But your decisions are done, and then if he wants to change that, he has to go into civil court or something and try
Yeah.
and get it. So, just so you know, I didn't want to give them anything
A
on the
year
record.
is okay.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you for coming in, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right,
Appreciate it.
sounds good.
All
Good
right.
luck.
I hope it didn't tarnish your view of Santa Barbara either, though, right?
I know how things go, just, I wasn't gonna do it in 30 days.
Thank you for coming.
Eric, we're still on the
Okay.
record, the meeting is still
I just, yeah, we need to, I lost my place, though. Any announcements?
Your next item on the agenda is adjournment.
Shoot.
Adjournment.
Just, is that it? We're to adjourn?
It's your
now?
turn to make a motion.
Okay, somebody needs to make a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.